All right, welcome back to another episode of Bear's Guide 205. Today we are talking about types of languages. Yes, types. And then we're going to dig into how different types of language can cause some cultural conflicts, and we're going to look at that in Montreal. Now, we've already talked about one type of language, a lingua franca. Yes, that is a type of language. It's a language used for international business between two people who do not speak that language as their primary language. And all we're doing today is exploring other types of languages that have other different types of rules and stuff like that. So the first one is a pidgin language. It's a simplified mix between two languages to conduct business or just to talk to each other. One of the main ones we think about is Spanglish, the idea of English and Spanish being put together. But apparently in Nigeria, they use a pidgin language pretty commonly, and I added some of the phrases there to give you an idea of what pidgin languages look like, because they kind of sound like English, they kind of sound like whatever language they're mixed with in this example. Our next type of language type is Creole, a mixed language between a colonizer and the colony. Now, there's only one type of Creole language, and it's literally Haitian Creole, because it's a mix of the colonial French language, but also the colonized slave languages of the different African slaves that were brought over to the Western Hemisphere. So, yeah, that's just Creole language. That is literally the example. Then we have official languages. Some countries, their governments decide to make an official language. We talked a little bit about this when we talked about how to save a language, because countries can do this, to make sure that that language is on all the government signs, on all the government forms. But it can have some problems, and that's actually why the U.S. doesn't have an official language. And we'll talk about more of those cultural conflicts that come with making an official language and come without making an official language in a country. Then we have isolated languages. These are languages that are completely unrelated to any other language. It doesn't share a family or a branch. It's by itself. And we saw this when we were drawing that language family tree at the start of this language unit, right? We saw that some families were just completely on their own. One example here is the Basque language, and it's isolated in Europe, and it's isolated between mountains. It's that very light blue in the European peninsula, and it's between the Pyrenees Mountains. We know that the Romance language families were isolated from each other, and that's how we got all the different Romance languages. But the Basque people are even more so isolated that they never had influence with those Romance language families, and they have their own complete, unique language on their own. So it's a isolated language. So yeah, that's it. Wow, coming in at 3 minutes, getting through this real quick. What you need to know today is essentially that there's other types of languages. We have our language families, branches, and groups, but those groups can be different types. And then understand what makes those types unique. And that's it. So, as always, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you know when new videos are released so you can stay up to date on the course. As always, this is Bear's Guide 205. We'll see you next time.